So before I start this podcast, I've actually just come back on to re-record a little intro on here because obviously today's topic is all about the roids and the steroids, but I'm not even kidding. So I recorded this podcast on a Sunday, I think, Saturday or Sunday. Tuesday, I get a Snapchat from a close friend of mine who is a police officer, and he was saying that he just had to witness and deal with a mother screaming and crying and reaching for hours and hours because her 27-year-old son had just passed away from steroid abuse. And after this podcast, after like going through it, you think about your podcast like quite a bit afterwards. I was taken back for a second. I was like, Jesus, like, it's how real it was. And yes, this podcast is quite lighthearted, but I just wanted to bring some attention and some awareness to the risks of when you are taking drugs, especially performance enhancers, and especially if you're messing around with steroids, because it is real. And I know a lot of people who are listening to this, if you're like, oh, you are taking steroids or you've considered taking steroids, might not want to hear what I'm saying right now. But the truth is that every time you're taking it, no matter what drug it is anyway, but it is a massive risk. And if you haven't done your crazy, in-depth, most scientific research with one of the best, well-renowned coaches when it comes to steroids, then I strongly recommend not to take them because the risk is seriously, critically real. The thing is that obviously we have so many people that we see and compare ourselves to on social media, YouTube, media, in movies, the rest of it, like a lot of movie stars that take steroids, is that it makes us feel very comfortable with it. However, there is not a whole lot of education and awareness around the dark side of it. So I thought I really want to bring some attention to that. I mentioned in this podcast how I really respect people who take steroids, and I respect them because they choose, if without 100% certainty, to sacrifice their health and take the risks. And the ones that do take steroids with accurate, precise, like with absolute precision with what they are doing and not abusing them, I have the most respect because they can get some great results. But the likelihood of that is extremely low unless you are willing or have the cash flow or the financial abundance to pay for someone to have some really good stuff done. And regardless of the situation, if you're taking steroids for massive muscle growth and massive muscle hypertrophy, the taxing on your liver, I talk about this a little bit in the podcast, is huge, and you will age faster. Straight up, age so much quicker. Even though you hear about the research and you listen to the guys, like, and as well, this podcast is all on my perception. This is all my opinion on steroids. You don't have to agree, but this is how I see them. As I see a lot of, biohackers and people in the industry and older guys like, yeah, I use testosterone replacement therapy and blah, 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 blah. All the rest of it is don't look up to them, especially the older guys. Don't look up to them until you hit their age and you're in their same situation and are using the same people that they've used and are not making the same mistakes that they have made with that either. Because they claim, and there has all the different study and the researchers, that when you're taking small micro amounts of steroids, and depending on the certain ones, there's so fucking many, it's ridiculous. The certain ones that there is some anti-aging benefits for sure. However, I still wanted just to bring the tone back, just to be like extremely serious with a huge warning of this. So yes, I just wanted to make it clear that some of the things I mentioned in this podcast are extremely lighthearted. But there is a serious tone and a serious side to taking steroids for the awareness. And one thing that people like to, like, I know a few people that take steroids, and a lot of things that I hear them say regularly is, I'm like, why do you take steroids? And they say, well, because they make me feel good. Of course they make you feel good. They're steroids. Like, that's a drug. And that's why it's addictive. And that's why you're doing it again. And that's why maybe you can't stop. I really enjoyed this period of my life because I felt amazing. It's like, yeah, because your testosterone was skyrocketing through the roof, of course you're going to feel really good. But that's all synthetic. You can get there naturally. But yes, you are sort of victimized, and I feel really sorry for you, and I really pity you because of the way just life is set up for us in 2020 plus 2021 in a westernized world, the amount of stresses and the amount of things that we are subjected to, and the amount of depression and anxiety and distraction and bad foods and bad habits and immediate things for us to make bad decisions and like taxing on our liver, just make it a lot harder for our testosterone to get up, so we never get to experience a high level of feeling amazing all the time. And so you can get that literally just from taking steroids. And as well, one thing that I just want to put the tone onto is that if you're taking like decent amounts of steroids, your liver will be taxed. Your liver will get fucked. And a lot of the time, if you're starting out on a steroid journey or doing whatever, what I see very commonly is you will fuck up the same way you fuck up when you start a new job, the same way you fuck up when you start training in the gym, the same way that you make mistakes any new journey that you start. You're going to stuff up something. So is it worth willing, like if you're this is for the people who are considering taking steroids, not just listening to my perception. If you're considering taking steroids, are those fuck ups going to be worth it? I mean, I, for one, would not want my mum to be screaming and crying over my dead body purely because I was taking a whole bunch of gas, mainly because of my insecurities or because I literally didn't understand the world good enough, or I didn't actually do my crazy in-depth research, or I got too egotistical and just went, yeah, I'll take this amount of steroids. This would be good. This would get me jacked for this amount of time. Like, that sort of perception gets people killed. And I just want to bring that to awareness. Now, yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the podcast now. I just wanted to little note that because that really rocked and shook me a little bit. I was like, holy shit. So yeah, guys, without any further ado, enjoy the podcast and yeah, enjoy my perception on this. You may agree, you may not agree, but hey, this is all just for discussion. Big love, guys. Yo, what's up, everybody? So today I'm talking about steroids and the importance of testosterone for men, but predominantly I'm going to be talking about steroids. I'm going to be talking about the respect that I have for those that do steroids, my thoughts on performance enhancement, PEDs, I'm not sure what that even stands for, performance enhancement drugs, I think that's what it is, the detoxing demands of the body and what the liver goes through and all the stuff that, steroids and stuff do to you, the role of dopamine and testosterone, what masculine energy has in its role with testosterone and steroids, the different sources of steroids, how I think I would do them if I did them properly, and how I sort of really focus on capping out your genetics first, and then why I don't take them, or why I do take them. Oh, what's the questions here? And if I were to take steroids, what would I do? So if you can't see the camera right now, I'm currently flexing as big as I can to show off all of the steroids that I take. I'm kidding, I don't take steroids. Alright, by the way, guys, just going to give a little quick intro, a quick shout out. So if you guys want to get on Bone Broth and try that, I have a podcast on Bone Broth and White. So good for you. I have a 12% off discount and it's on my website. I have a brand new website. If you haven't seen it, CoreyBoutwell.com. You have to scroll to the bottom, click on the blog because the link to the bone broth is on the blog. If you haven't already subscribed to my email list, you might have to DM me if you want to jump on that. I send out one email a week of just an absolute gem. I do a philosophy injection and I do a health injection. And if you haven't already and you are listening to my podcast and you haven't bought my recipe ebook, I strongly recommend to do that because quite a few people are now and they're all jumping on the page of jumping on my recipe ebook and like, oh, we tried this and we had this and I feel really good here and this is really good here and I've been going to the markets and buying all this stuff and now I'm starting to feel fantastic. So like I'm really pushing that out there because it's actually doing really, really well. It's really good. And I think that's quite awesome. So yeah, without further ado, well, by the way, I just wanted to share with you guys that today I just killed, and I'm not exaggerating, non-exaggerating, like 25 flies. I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast today. And as I was killing the flies, I'm like, man, I can't wait to do this podcast and tell people I killed like 15 flies. As I said that, I opened these blinds here and there was fucking another 5 or 6 flies. I was like, oh my God, why is there so many flies up in the house? But, whatever. We got them done. But I'm not exaggerating. It was 25 flies. It was literally flicking tea towels around, shit everywhere. Which I thought is pretty cool. Anyway, let's get to it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else out at the moment. Yes, I'm offering a whole bunch of stuff with coaching programs and things at the moment. I'm building some things in the front line, so be prepared and look out for those. I'm building some real cool stuff to really keep people accountable and build something with a community where I can get in contact with like you guys who are listening, and actually like we can talk on a regular basis. Something that's going to work out for you, so people don't have to like pay much, and something's going to work out for me, so I don't have to go like crazy in depth like for one-on-one coaching, because that's like all backhand stuff. But yes, without further ado, thanks for listening to all that if you got through those. And now I'll get to with the podcast. So, steroids. Don't take steroids, never have. Why not? I've never even really felt all that tempted to use them, to be honest, because at a very young age, my dad was like, yo, if you ever take steroids, I'm gonna kick your ass. And he was quite serious when he said that. And me and dad weren't in the best relationship ever then, when I was like, yeah, fair enough. The second reason is I'm way too broke, and I honestly, even though being in the gym industry, I wouldn't know who to go to even get them. And yeah, they cost way too much. It's ridiculous. And I've always seen like a decent response in my body through going to the gym and training really hard. So I've never been like, well, I never really actually need them to get to the size that I'd be extremely happy with. And on top of that, though, I do have one story. One of my friends was hell funny. I was a very young age, and I know I was never going to do them. I think I would have been like 17, but he was chasing me around his house with a needle. Like, let me inject you, bro. Let me inject you. You'll get massive. And I was like, running around the house. I thought that was really funny. That was a good little story. That's the closest I've ever been like to seeing steroids. I saw the needle containers, and I was like, oh man, that just must be so much goddamn effort. But yeah, so essentially, yeah, I haven't took them because I had never really felt the need to, and dad said he kicked my ass, and I was just like, whatever. But I have done a whole bunch of research on there, not like crazy amounts. Like, I'm not the go-to person if you were to ask about steroids. I'm just going to give you my view on them, and I hope that like the goal of this podcast is to like inspire you to see what you can do with your genetic potential before making any steroids decisions, because I do see people like that I coach come like, fix me. I did steroids and now like I'm depressed and got these problems and blah, 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 and getting them back to feeling fucking optimal energy. So, which is cool. But yeah, so I have a huge respect for those who do steroids. Firstly, yeah, why don't I? Yeah, I've never really been tempted. Will I ever do them? Probably not. One of the main reasons is that there's a few people that I look at and research who, like, I didn't even know about testosterone much for ages. No, it's not till the past couple of years and I've actually got my testosterone measured through blood tests and through Dutch tests and things like that. So I've seen about my testosterone, I understand how it works, and I know how the different numbers works and what they mean. And what's really interesting to me was just through listening to people like Frank Zane. He has a really good podcast, listening to Frank Zane, which is an old school aesthetic bodybuilder who did a podcast with Dave Asprey from Bulletproof Radio. And they were just talking about testosterone things. And this guy is like 70 years old and his testosterone is at a level of like 780 or something. Now, I got my testosterone done and it was 350. And that's like average. I was like, that is fucking shit. I was like, oh my gosh, I really wish it was up like what his level was. And he's off steroids now. He doesn't take any steroids. Like I think he did when he won Mr. Olympia a couple of times, but he hasn't used them in heaps and heaps of years. And yeah, which I thought was very impressive. I talked to Brandon Kempter, who is a natural bodybuilder, who is one of the best bodybuilders that like I've ever seen. He looks so good. You can check him out on Instagram. It looks phenomenal. And he's like, yeah, dude, like my testosterone, I got like when I got it checked, it was like off season or something. It was at like 800. I was like, what? Mine's at 350. What? And then at the same time, I was looking at, I think it's Lucas or Lewis Owen, and he was on Ben Greenfield's podcast, and he has a course on testosterone. And I just researched a whole bunch of things that he says with testosterone as well. And he got his testosterone to 1,000. And I can't remember who I was listening to. I was listening to someone who talked about thousands of years ago, it might have been Paul Chek, thousands of years ago, that our testosterone was also up heaps higher all the time. Like we had a really high testosterone up around the 800s to thousands constantly. Can't remember where that come from. So don't quote me on that. However, what I do know and do respect is that like the medical associations have been like, you know, the ranges. I was talking about this with Lockie Nichols, who's a South Australian natural bodybuilder as well. And we were talking about how the medical association have like brought down the ratios of like, okay, a healthy testosterone level is between 200 and 700, something like that is where your testosterone should be, right? People at 800 and 1,000. And it used to be higher. Like it used to be like, you know, from 400 to 800 or something like that. And they've just been bringing it down over time, which is like, the fuck? So we don't even understand, like we think our testosterone is in a normal rate when it's like, no, optimally, at a very healthy level, it should be something like 800 to 1,000. Am I there? Absolutely not. Am I working to get there? Absolutely fucking yes. I want that high testosterone. I want to get it. Being at the age of 28 and doing all the stuff that I do, it's like, well, that is completely fine. And how do you get there? Who are your adrenals? Who are your liver? And they'll basically sort you out. The reason Frank Zane's was so high was he was like, he's very stoic. And he lives a very monk lifestyle. And the essence to masculine energy for high testosterone is being calm and present. And every time that you yell, female hormones go up, which I hope you guys, I'm not sure if you knew about this, but like John Gray talks about it. He's done all the research for it. If you yell or get angry or really heightened emotion for something and you react on them, estrogen spikes. Interesting. Every time you solve a problem and dopamine goes up, and every time you have the temptation to either yell or get angry or react to emotions, and you don't, and you catch that and you calm yourself down, testosterone spikes. Which is fucking crazy interesting. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but, you know, whatever. I'm just going to let you know where it comes from. So, ancestrally, if we think about this thousands and thousands of years ago, through all different religions and all through different tribes and through spiritual dream stuff, I do all this crazy research and all this stuff because I find it fascinating. What has come up is the role of the feminine and what they do. And one of them is like, if you fuck with a female's baby, right, they're going to cut your head off. They'll rip, scream, they'll fucking do anything that you can to do with that. And girls feel emotions on a level that guys will never understand, right? That we'll never understand how the girls feel emotions. That's why they talk emotions, that's how they feel emotions, and they digest them really well and get rid of them. Now, what men do, or process them, it's not get rid of them, they're always going to have them, but they process them and can live their lives feeling amazing. Guys, we work really hard in our heads to forget shit. And you notice that we forget shit all the time. We think about it like, fuck, I forget my keys here. I left this somewhere else. But that works really well for us in like relationships for men on men, especially like ancestrally, as guys in certain tribes, if people would like fuck something up or something would happen or you get into a dispute or fight with someone, you'd need to forget about it to get over it. Forget about it, mate. Don't worry about it. You probably know you say that all the time. Like if you're a guy and listening to this, maybe, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Like I'm over it. I forgot it. I don't even remember it anymore. Unconsciously, we work really hard at that. And it's very interesting as well because when we used to hunt tigers or bee things, we'd be sleeping in like rocks and whatever it was. And we'd have to be worried about bugs coming to get us, snakes coming to bite us, wild animals coming to kill us and stuff like that, or rain or whatever it is. We need to forget about all these things that were happening just to get a good night's sleep. But the thing is we're so good at forgetting now into a modern world that with relationships and jobs and things like that, sometimes it's not as practical as what it could be. Now, where does this all make sense is that what happens is it's hard for us to digest emotions. Men don't naturally are very good at digesting emotions. And what we do is we allow emotions to bottle up within inside of us because we don't process them. We forget about them. And sometimes when it comes to things, forgetting about things is great. When it comes to forgetting about emotions, it's not too great because we store them up. And what happens is we're trying to forget something. And if we can't solve something and we can't forget about it, like if you can't solve something and then can't forget about it, that's what drives a man nuts. If they sit on the couch and they're just like, I can't stop fucking thinking about this thing. I can't get it out of my head. That's when you see that they'll just go crazy. And if they like quite literally go crazy. And you start noticing that what happens is if you get bottled up all those different emotions and then someone's just going to say one thing to trigger you, you'll be like, what the fuck do you mean? And then like estrogen is going to spike. That's a very common way. It also spikes in other different ways, but this is like the emotion of anger specifically. A lot of guys go through this, don't know how to process emotions. So when that happens is that's a whole bunch of female stuff because females can feel and process emotions. It's not forgetting stuff like like men's stuff. But what happens is, for testosterone to spike, if you can figure all of that out and you can be very calm and figure out how to process and digest like all your emotions and think and feel them through, testosterone increases. Interesting. Which is why like meditation and spiritual practices, why I preach it so goddamn much, is because it literally heals your liver, heals your adrenals, and gets your testosterone up nice and high. What? And that's why Frank Zane he's been doing meditation and stuff for ages. He does like archery where he gets like real calm and focus, and it's more like Japanese Zen style archery. Anyway, does all of those things to allow them testosterone go up naturally, which is like really fucking handy. But I get it that like, you know, steroids can be super tempting, especially in like the westernized modern world where getting rid of those emotions and practically doing those things it can be like, you wouldn't even think about it, right? You'd be like, that's way too hard. Why do that when I can just jack myself up on steroids instead and live comfortably on there? Now, that was a long dive deep into a few different things, but I think that stuff's really interesting, and we really need to know that and have a little bit of a basic understanding of that in order to, you know, just think about why our testosterone isn't high and why we might be tempted to get on the gas. So the next point that I got here is, so I really respect those who do actually do steroids, especially the ones that do them properly, because I think that people that do steroids, they need to be so much more strict than us natural people because of all the risks. It's like very high risk from what I can see, and very high reward. Even if you have the best quality stuff in the world and you've got like, you know, someone helping you out, coaching you through, like some sort of doctor, it's like it's a rise up to the mountain. You got to stay there for ages, and it's a very slow descent, which is what I've seen with people that I work with and people that I know. It's like, oh, it's crazy. And a lot of people, like, you know, everything's a learning curve and everything's a learning game. And let's say you're going to be on steroids for a couple of years. Chances are you're going to stuff up things here or there. You're going to forget something here, you're going to forget something there, and it's just going to make everything like sort of go out of whack, which is what I've seen quite often. Someone gets too angry, or which, by the way, isn't actually testosterone. That's like too much testosterone over converting into estrogen. That's a symptom of that. What? Because emotions, Jesus. So you want to be using up the most amount of testosterone as possible. And it really depends as well how healthy your liver and your adrenals are, because it's one thing to have high testosterone, but it's another thing to convert it. And it's the conversion of testosterone, which you find out in a Dutch test, how it works and how you're actually converting it. It's the conversion of the testosterone, which is king, which is key, which is going to give you all the results. So there's a couple of things there, but I really respect the people that do actually do it, because I believe you have to be like a lot more on point, because you have a huge tax on the liver, and like a big taxing on the liver. And it's like, if you're on steroids and you do take steroids and you are listening to this, like, I strongly encourage you, if when you are on them, to like not drink, not do drugs, not do anything that's too harmful, not have a too high fat diet, because you have enough testosterone. I'd say to something probably more carby, and be extremely strict. I'll be making sure that I'm in bed asleep at like 10 every single night, regardless. Especially if you're going on for however long. I don't know how long people do fucking steroid courses for, but however long you do a course for, I would be making sure that I go to sleep every single night like that, because otherwise it's just going to age you. Like, literally make you age really quick. But there is some science and some studies that I've researched and looked onto, like older men making their testosterone levels that like a 25-year-old from some incredibly good sources, and they're seeing a lot of results from it, which I find fascinating and interesting, because, you know, the girls take the pill, right? And the pill, all the new science stuff, I don't know if you've seen it recently, but all the new science and all this stuff is out about like how bad the pill is. And it is ridiculously bad, like so bad. And if you know any girls that are on it, tell them to get off regardless of the circumstances. Go tell them to see a naturopath. The Healing Art Studio in Adelaide, they're like fantastic. They've helped so many girls like fix all of their problems from being on the pill. And it's just ridiculous, like how recently now, how awake people are to like, fuck that. And essentially, steroids is the exact same thing for guys. It's the same thing as the pill, but you're taking it for guys, and instead it makes you super fertile instead of infertile. But it's just hormone replacement. But yeah, there is some studies to that for older dudes. But honestly, if Frank Zane's 70 years old and he's on 700 testosterone, like, Why would you take them if you can do it naturally? But to do that, it's a longer process, and you have to really learn your own body. You have to be doing things like doing the DNA test. You have to be doing things like the Dutch test. You have to be seeing naturopaths. You have to be understanding your own mind, understanding your routine, understanding your stress, understanding when you're actually allowing time for testosterone to come up, how you are with relationships, when it boosts, when it decreases. So you've got to be very on point with things. So I can understand like the attractiveness for just be like, oh, I just want my testosterone to go up. Boom, let's jump on the steroids. But yeah, so I really respect people that do it properly. And I even more respect the people that have trained for like 5 to 10 years, done a bunch of comps, look fantastic, got all the muscle in the world, gotten really strong, and then jumped on the steroids. Because some people have done that and they've had like fantastic results. And it makes a lot of sense, because what you see very regularly in people that do sports who haven't been thinking about steroids too regularly is that they'll train, their muscles get too strong that they end up ripping their tendons off the bone. And every time, oh, I pulled a hammy, oh, I did this, whatever it is, oh, like I pulled like this part of my shoulder thing here. It's like, well, your muscle got too strong for your tendon. You need to not be lifting as heavy on the juice, because you're still going to like recover anyway. Like you don't need to lift heavy. You can lift whatever it is, you're going to recover like crazy. Just make sure you get that stimulus in there and you're very careful in what you do. So yeah, it's nuts. And the only thing that I do know from researching, I guess, some of the professionals and people that I really trust personally, like all of this stuff that I'm saying is just my own opinion, guys. Like you don't have to take it in. You can if you like, but this is literally my perspective from my lens, how I see it. And what I see is that people who just take test are a lot better off than people that do anything else. From what I've seen personally, because the rest of it's just like, it's just too much. And like, honestly, if it's to the point where anyone is, if you're listening to this and you're taking steroids and you're taking like 5 different things, like you gotta find someone, get a doctor to help yourself get off. You should not be a chemist of shit just to fucking get your testosterone a little bit up. Like, honestly, you're better off, instead of dealing with all of that stress, just meditating for half an hour every single day to increase your testosterone, and take some Tribulus or some sort of adaptogenic, which will help you out. Because all that amount of stress and becoming like your own personal chemist is just too much. And that's too much time. Like, if you're spending so much time on that, and you could be spending so much more of that time doing so many other different things with your life, building businesses, having fun relationships, blah, 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 that'd probably help increase your testosterone naturally anyway. So yeah, in saying so, people that do it, like, these are all these other things that I know that would come out of it, but for the people that do take steroids and they do them properly and they are really strict with them, and they build a fantastic, strong, fit, superhero looking physique and have like the crazy energy, and they've done it properly, like, high five to you. And having to deal with it in general. So even anyone that has been on steroids for a long period of time and they've mastered some of the things and figured it out, like hats off to you, honestly, because that's like a big ass journey, and that's like, it's a lot of stress to take under, and it's a lot of learning, and it's a lot of, understanding, and a lot of figuring yourself out. Like, yeah, I think that's quite nuts. So for the people who do take them, like, huge respect. Also, the detoxing demands of the body, I went over that, is, the liver stuff. So how testosterone converts, I'm not sure if you listen to any of my other podcasts, but I've got podcasts on testosterone, and I've got other podcasts on the Dutch test, which goes deep into testosterone. And basically, how testosterone is made is there's this one hormone called pregnenolone, which comes from cholesterol. Pregnenolone then converts off into either cortisol or testosterone. And testosterone relates with your whole endocrine system. So your thyroid, your liver, your adrenals, it's all connected together, and it all helps like produce and boost your testosterone. And for men, like the higher testosterone, it's sort of like an indicator of the health for everything that's working on in your system. Now, the thing is cortisol these days can get spiked from heaps of shit. Like, if we got 4 meetings in one day, even just thinking that, if you go, that's cortisol spike. You're going to know that when you're doing something today or tomorrow, you're going to start doing some stuff and going, oh God, and then be like, oh fuck, that's cortisol spiking right there. Get out of here, cortisol. Coffee spikes it. There's all these different things. Anything stressful is going to spike your cortisol, and pregnenolone will either convert to testosterone or cortisol. It won't convert to both. Very interesting. So I've got some theories around this. I've got some serious theories around this. Because when you're in the gym, you're cortisol as fuck, right? It makes a lot of sense to me. You're training really hard, and it's true, it's not make sense to me. It happens when you're training really hard in the gym or exercising really hard, cortisol goes up really high so you can get that shit done. It's afterwards when you're chilling and you're relaxing, which allows your testosterone to spike. So allowing that time to do that is really handy. for growing. And like one thing that made so much sense to me was like Dorian Yates. I've just made another click here. Oh my God, I've made a click while I'm doing this podcast. And fuck. All right, so first thing. Oh, God damn it. All right, so Dorian Yates would have an hour nap after every single training thing. I remember taking that every time he'd train in the gym. Dorian Yates, by the way, is like a 6-time Mr. Olympia, one of the biggest, best people in the world. He changed, bodybuilding from being like Arnold Schwarzenegger to fucking stacked. Like stacked. And he would have an hour of sleeping. He'd just sleep for an hour after every single training session, which makes a lot of sense to me because if your cortisol spikes, to allow it to drop, you have a sleep, human growth hormone's going to go up, and he'd sleep for an hour, so he'd do like one sleep cycle. His testosterone is going to go up because you're allowing to relax, and because you've dug in such a deep hole with cortisol, that when you do get relaxed, it's a lot easier to allow your testosterone to go because endorphins are released, because these other relaxing hormones are released because you've worked really hard. So it makes a lot of sense that testosterone will grow. Will come up. Now that what I just thought then was like, oh man, what I've been doing is weekends, right? I'll go train really hard and I'm like, look forward to I can't wait to have a coffee after. I'll train really hard, cortisol spiked, and then I'll have a coffee. Instead of relaxing, I'm all hyped up again. Shit. I gotta start doing something just like having a sauna and relaxing instead. Damn it. So if you're listening to this and you hit the same click as me, no coffees after gym, because that'll increase your cortisol is going to go up. That makes so much sense to me. So what also makes sense is if you do something, because they haven't got studies around this, like ice baths, because it is going to, like an ice bath will make your cortisol go up really high. And they think like, oh, so it's not good for testosterone because your cortisol is going really high and your testosterone is going to drop. It's like, yes, but it allows you to get really comfortable and really relaxed. So then when you jump like into bed that night, you're all just like cozy as shit. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And it makes you super relaxed and your testosterone's going to increase. So it's like, that makes so much sense. So yeah, there's a couple points. I've talked a little bit about the role of dopamine and testosterone. So dopamine increases testosterone. Where does dopamine come from? Specifically for men, it comes from solving problems. So not at a very high energy. It comes from if you're figuring out your emotions, that's a problem solved. If you're doing something at work and you get that dopamine, and not on your phone, so there's negative and positive dopamine hit. So if you're on your phone and you just you're on Tinder and a pretty girl likes you back and you're like, yeah, how good is that? Or you're liking someone's photos or you're posting, someone comments back and you get ding, dopamine hit. No good. That is I wouldn't say a good dopamine hit because it's just too much stimulus. But if you're solving an internal problem, like a higher performance type of problem, where you're getting into prefrontal cortex using type 2 dopamine, I'm assuming that what happens is testosterone increases. Solving problems equals testosterone increase, which is really, really handy. So dopamine is really links in together with testosterone. So how do you naturally get testosterone up? It would be one of the main things is just knowing that pure masculine energy from the dawn of time. This is in David Dieter's book. This is in a lot of sex guru books and people that teach things on sex, and old school monks and the art of Zen and Japanese Zen stuff, Western philosophers, it all comes through, and it's allowing time for stillness in the day really rejuvenates testosterone, as well as being out in nature and stuff like that, breathing in all those good air, being really still, calm and present. So even when you're having a conversation with someone and you are just completely enwrapped in them and nothing else matters and you're present with them and you're not super distracted, that allows you to get into a high performance function brain. Dopamine's gonna, I made that click then. That's another little click I had today. That's cool. I like talking to myself. So, that got me, don't know why. So even when you're meditating, when you're sitting there and thinking and you're allowing yourself to get to that high performance brain and you're allowing your mind to wander and you're being really still, and being extremely patient, masculine energy increases. So this is something that I really try to work on myself because it's not a strength of mine. Type A personality, super extroverted. So when I'm driving in a car, I'm like, hurry up. I get super frustrated. When I'm just impatient for shit, I'll start blowing and getting frustrated for stuff. And knowing that internally calming that down is going to increase my testosterone, makes me a lot more motivated to do it. And when I do it, I feel great. So yeah, also, next point here I wanted to talk about was like the sources of steroids. So someone who I really respect and look up to, and I'm going to their course, and I'm so excited. The end of May is the Muscle Nerds. Luke Lehman is an absolute wizard, and I really like him because he mentioned Pull Check once. I was listening to something he was talking about. He's like, yeah, Pull Check does this, and I really like this thing that Pull Check did, and I was like, I love Pull Check too, my man. And he talks about steroids and where he coaches a lot of people that have had taken steroids because he coaches a lot of high performance athletes. And what he was saying was that, man, people will take a certain amount of steroids and be taking them for ages, and he'll get someone on some of the good stuff and they're taking like a sixth of the dose, or they'll get the good stuff, they'll take as much as normal, and then their whole body's like, boom, and they're like, what the hell is going on? It's like, yeah, you're supposed to be taking so much amount smaller than that. So as far as the sources of going, if people are taking steroids, and that's one reason that, like, I guess it put me off of taking them as well, was, man, I can't be bothered trying to find the good sources of steroids. Like, I can go to the central market or like some markets and look around and ask for things. Oh, is this local, organic, grass-fed goodness? Have you guys got some organic beetroot extract, which is going to get me all pumped up and brain going on? Something like that. And then find all the exotic ingredients which we should be eating, that we were eating thousands of years ago. It's super attractive to me, right? I love that, especially things that are like full of probiotics. I can look for that and I can go see it in the markets. When the steroids, I don't even know what kind of underground tunnels I have to go through and dig to try and find that kind of stuff. Like, man, I've been super interested in peptides and I really like them. I don't even know where to go to look at, try and find stuff for peptides. I'm like, I'd love some oral BPC 157. That would be great. Where do I go to get that? I don't bloody know. And I can't be bothered. Honestly, I can't be bothered. I was like, I'll just keep eating healthy and doing all that stuff. So yeah, I think like that's another fact. And also, yeah, what I think is, if you are going to do them, is like, honestly, get like a really, really good coach and pay someone the big bucks. And if you haven't set yourself out financially, then you're probably not in a position to be doing steroids anyway. Yeah, if you haven't set yourself up financially, you probably shouldn't be doing steroids anyway, because it's too much stress on your body. If you're still trying to figure out finance and you're scrubbing through pennies to get on the gas, then like, my God, that's just too much stress. And obviously, taking steroids and having like fake hormones is going to put a lot of stress on your liver, and your liver needs like a lot of chill time. There's another fly. Oh my God, I'm going to kill the shit out of him later. Obviously, if you're too worried about finance stress, your liver's not going to heal. It's going to be a lot harder for you to get all the results from steroids and look after your body and your organs as best as possible. So if you're going to do them properly, I say just wait until you're older. Try and cap your genetic potential first. And like, you know, you hear all the people say this, and if anyone is on here and they're like 25 years and under, and they're considering steroids or ever thought about it, like, you're so young. You are so young. And I remember listening to all these people say this, and it hasn't been like, because I've been listening to people talk about like, oh, wait till you're older to take steroids, since I started lifting at the age of like 15, 16, and people like taking gas at school. And I was like, what the hell? But I've always listened to people say that, and now, like, being 28, obviously not old yet, still a baby, but even just looking now, it's like, oh man, I'm so happy that I didn't at those ages. Like, I'm so happy that I didn't take the risk or do all of those things, because as well, I really want to find my genetic potential first. And have I got there yet? Absolutely not. Like, there are stuff I could be so much more stricter on. Going to get my testosterone up to 800 to 1,000 and keep it there for like a whole year, and then train like that, and boom, put on some serious muscle and feel like an absolute king, because that's where our testosterone should be. So yeah, it's like, oh God, I've only got a 700 testosterone increase to do. Like, my God. So yeah. So that is probably like one of the mainest reasons why I don't tank them. And it's a little good insight to look at as far as like what to actually aim for and shoot for. And that's just a blood test of looking for your free testosterone, not its actual conversion. Obviously, it's different converting. But you can find that out if you get things like a Dutch test. And it all costs money. And if you haven't got the money, don't damn do it. Wait till you're older. There's a lot of people that as soon as they take them older as well, like if you're 40 years old and you're taking the testosterone levels of that of like a 22, 25-year-old, whatever, and you think like you're not going to, of course you're going to grow. You're going to put on so much size. It's ridiculous. But yeah. So another question, if I were to take steroids, what would I do? So I would be just like, when I'm on a comp prep, I'd be so much more stricter than what I'm doing. The first thing that I would do is this really handy tip, which I like give to like my clients when we're talking about things, is when you go on a program or a challenge, communicate it to everyone, because you need support. You don't want to be doing things and people not understanding, like, why are you being so distant? Why are you rushing around doing that all the time? Why are you like not eating food with us? Why are you blah, 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 right? If you reach out to people, like actively reach out to your friends and family and say, hey, look, I'm doing this challenge for a while. I really would love your support because I'm doing this and this is what I love and this is what I'm doing. And you tell them all of those things and you tell them the risks that were up with stuff and your goals and your dreams and ambitions for it, then you're going to get the most amount of support in the world. And I do know, like, as men, we find like very hard, like, oh, I'm just going to go out there, warrior, and crush it myself. I'll go out on my journey. But a lot of the time is that if you ask for help, like ask and you shall receive. Thank you, Jesus. But it's so legit, especially if you talk and communicate to people about what you're doing, the amount of support you get is like ridiculous. And I've made that mistake a couple of times, and I've also used that a few times. Like I remember when I was going through my last breakup, I messaged all my friends, like every single one of them, like I am going to be emotionally hurt for the next like 4 to 6 months. I've been through a breakup before and I know how much it's going to suck. Like I'm going to be in the hurt locker. So I'm going to reach out to you guys. I'm going to ask for the best support, and not just this one, like don't this next like week or two. Like I love your support for the next however many months, because I'm going to need it. And the amount of support I got was overwhelming. Like every single one of my friends kept in contact, kept in touch, come and saw me, did things. They haven't like stopped checking in with things, asking stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, this is one of the best things ever. I've also done it with comps before in comp prep, like, can I please have this help for this amount of time? And this is all it is, and have received overwhelming support. So the first thing I would do was tell everyone that if you don't want to confess that you're taking steroids, but say you're on some sort of gym challenge or whatever it is, I communicate to everyone, because I just tell them honestly, because why wouldn't you be honest about that? I mean, you're going to need super support around that, because if they see you about to eat something sugary or fucking high fat, you're going to want them to tell you off. So I tell everyone, communicate it, and tell them what's expected of me for however many period of time, so that I actually have support and then I have people to talk about it with. Because if you don't have people to talk about it with, you let your emotions build up, and when your emotions build up, you're going to snap at someone, and what's going to spike? Estrogen! Fuck! So I definitely communicate it first. Then I would just be super strict. I would be like eating nothing processed. I'd be having nothing really high in fake sugars, and I wouldn't be having any damaged fats, like no way in hell. And I'd be eating everything organic, and I'd be having everything like grass-fed, wild caught, and be very strict on that. I'd be going to bed at 10 p.m. every single night. Every single event that there is out, I'd have a cap that I would be going to go home at 8 p.m. Like, sorry, if you're on this thing and you like, this is a very short period of time, I think, I don't know how many weeks it is, whatever, like a normal, whatever course is, but whatever it is, compared to your life, it's still a short period of time that you have to like stick to some stuff. So when you're on it, I'd make sure that everyone knew, and that, you know, there's such a short period of time that to stick to something, I'd be super strict. So if you've got events on, you've got things that you feel obliged to do or obliged to go to, I'd say no, especially on weekends. I'd be like, absolutely not. I got to take care of my body, because, you know, I want to live. Well, we should. You may not want to live very long, but if you do want to live very long and you want to live very healthy, when you have energy, like into your 70s and 80s, still going to the gym, just like kicking ass, like Frank Zane, great example. Because he's still training and kicking ass, that guy, like he really is. With testosterone at 700, my God. If you want to be doing that for a long period of time, which is super sustainable, you got to be protecting yourself now. And yeah, that's what I would be doing big time. And I'd also be making sure that I meditate, like regardless of like 30 minutes to 50 minutes, like daily. Like if I was on the gas, I'd be doing that for sure. I'd be doing everything else in order to increase my testosterone so that I could take the least amount of steroids as possible to get the most amount of results. Minimal effective dose, always, which I think would be really handy. So yeah, I think I've got a Friedrich Nietzsche quote for you guys today. Interesting. Because I didn't pick one of these out. Just look on the first page right now. So here's one. I'm not sure how to interpret this. To conceal myself and my riches, I learnt from the humans, for I found everybody still poor in spirit. Grave diggers dig diseases for themselves. I think that's a big one. And weigh the world in the morning. Well, I'm going to take the first one as probably the most important. To conceal myself and my riches. So if we're talking that in terms of steroids, what would be yourself and your riches? I'd say, well, to hide yourself and who you are in your best energy, in your best body, living your best life. To conceal all that stuff, I learned from the humans. And in Friedrich Nietzsche's terms, he uses the herd as like humans, everyone who follows the same different beliefs and they're not taking their own unique path. And we should all take our own unique path, is what he says, in order to overcome ourselves. So, for I found everybody still poor in spirit. So when you have a very strong spirit and when you have sorted yourself out and you understand all those stuff, that's maybe when, if you're extremely tempted to jump on steroids or something like that, maybe when you consider it when you've gotten to an older age and you've semi-reached your genetic potential. And if you're not there, then don't do it. As tempting as it is, like, just don't. Like, you don't have to. A lot of the time it's external validation stuff. But I think that's really interesting. I actually really like that quote. To conceal myself and my riches, I learnt from the humans, for I found everybody still poor in spirit. Yeah, humans in general, very good at concealing themselves, not sharing all their riches and stuff. And that is due to being poor in spirit. How can you work on your spirit, work on your character? How do you do that? Learn a shitload about yourself. How do you learn about yourself? Well, that's the question. I can help you out with that, but you're going to have to DM me. All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Big flex, big steroid flex. Yeah! For you guys, I hope you learned something from this. Like, obviously, again, this is just my opinion on things and like my thoughts and my perspectives. Y'all can take it. Y'all can leave it. You can agree. Y'all can disagree. But whatever you think, if you have any questions or want to know anything about it, like, yeah, shoot me a DM, Instagram, Corey Boutwell. The loser taking selfies in the mirror at gyms. I have a good time doing that. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast. Big love to you. Go out there. I hope you're living in your most optimal bodies, crushing energy, crushing life. You know your purpose. You're doing the work. You're doing all the little things that I'm telling you in this podcast. And if you're integrating them, then you start feeling fantastic. Like, oh, little wins. So yeah, big love to you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.